Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein, tuning in from outside. How's it going, David?
It's going well. I figured it's pretty warm out. Summer's actually coming here in Florida pretty quickly. But before it gets too hot, I figured I'd do an episode outside.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially for people scrolling on LinkedIn, it's good sometimes when you're sitting in the office to see people sitting outside. So I think you should do it more often. But
Yeah.
anyway, well, we have a great episode today, regardless. Today, we're thrilled to welcome on Suraj Narayanan. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Socialtrait. Welcome to the show, Suraj.
Hey, Jesse and David, thanks for the welcome.
Absolutely. Well, we're really glad you could join us today. We know it was a little last minute, but we are happy you could join us and take the time out to share some information with us on the show. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I'd love for you to kick it off for us and give the listeners and viewers a little bit of information about who you are and what your journey has been to date and what led you to become CTO of Socialtrait and what Socialtrait is doing today for its customers.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm the CTO of Socialtrait. Personally, I have a background as I started out as a software engineer, and then kind of transitioned into academia. I was kind of seeing glimmers of AI kind of popping up in early 2010, like 2014 during that time. And I was trying to get into AI, and I couldn't understand most of the math and science behind it. And so I decided to kind of quit my job and pursue AI as a research subject. So I did my master's in Canberra, Australia, at the Australian National University. And I pursued this specific field of AI called reinforcement learning, which is the science of decision making on how AI systems takes action under uncertainty. And after my academic stint, I kind of transitioned as an AI consultant. And during that time, I had a personal pain point surrounding understanding human behavior, particularly in a social context, and this led to the origins of Socialtrait, right? So kind of talking about Socialtrait and how it kind of kicked off. Personally, I was sending a message on this forum called as Hacker News. And Hacker News, for those who are not aware of it, it is a Y Combinator kind of forum where mostly there's like nerds and people who are technically inclined kind of discuss about up and coming technology and various activities that is happening in the world, right? And so I was posting something over there, and I went for vacation, came back, and saw that my particular comment had received a lot of negative comments, right? Like people were kind of saying that what I'm said was horrible or bad and things like that. And I didn't mean any of that to happen, but that as an AI consultant, I had like AI as my hammer, and I was thinking from an AI lens, how can I understand how people are going to misinterpret or misunderstand how what my comments were, right? Maybe I hadn't thought about various aspects of that comments and how people could have thought about that particular comment, and so I could better my communication, right, if I knew in beforehand that how people were going to misinterpret it, right? So that kind of thought got me thinking, and at that point of time, GPT-3 was kind of coming, and we're seeing this kind of resurgence of AI, NLP, and this transformer models kind of kicking off, and the impact that they are making in the natural language processing community. So at that time, kind of I was toying with this idea of how if we could simulate individuals and collections of individuals, maybe we could look at these distributions of various opinions, these individuals who are modeled as these NLP, these language models, but different varieties of language models, and we could understand a distribution of opinions for basically a specific topic that we are interested in. Kind of that idea kind of acted as a seed for Socialtrait. I met my co-founders Vivek and Gopa through a common friend. we started talking about this. We started talking about various ideas. This was one of them. We pursued another idea that kind of didn't lead anywhere, and then I was talking about this specific thing that about there's this thing called as generative modeling. At that time, it was called generative modeling, not generative AI. That is kind of seeing a lot of promise, and this is a small idea that we want to pursue. And that and Vivek and Gopa were like they were really excited about this idea. We took on it and tried to build an early proof of concept, demoed it to first here in Australia, in Melbourne, RMIT University. They gave us a grant which enabled us to go to Silicon Valley, push for our particular this idea in University of Berkeley, their accelerator, Berkeley Skydeck. And at Berkeley Skydeck, they would it was in 2022, their first accelerator intake. We were we were the Gen AI, specifically focusing on Gen AI at that time. Even before that was a word, right? Before ChatGPT. So we were the only startup in that cohort at that time, which focusing on generative AI. So they were kind of taking a leap of faith with this new technology, and gave us our pre-seed round of investment. And we kind of kicked off our journey in Silicon Valley and raised our seed round the following year. And it's been a very exciting journey to kind of build Socialtrait as a company until now.
Yeah, that's an awesome journey, and I love the idea of what you said about using AI to understand how people will react to something even before they're presented with it. So you're sort of using that to get a predictive idea of whether what you're going to do is going to work or not, right? I love that, and I think that sort of segues nicely into our first topic, transforming consumer research with AI personas. And I'd love for you to share go a little deeper and share a little more of your thoughts on this.
Sure. Yeah. So kind of building up from that, AI. So Socialtrait, at that time I had this kind of three phases of master plan, right? Like how are we going to build up what we wanted to build from the get-go, right? Like we wanted to build up this community, like this large number of AI people who are there and who we can look at, and they can kind of predict and react to various situations that is happening in a social particular context, right? So I wanted to break it down into kind of three phases of operations, or three phases of products. So the first phase kind of that we built at Berkeley Skydeck was to preempt brand reputation risk. So this was our very first offering as a company, where companies could kind of route all their external communication, their tweets, their promotional messages, their maybe email communications to their customers, whatever outbound communication that they want to go, it can be routed through one of our systems and our personas, right? Like at that time we had we had personas, kind of loosely defined personas. They would kind of react to all of these different things coming in from the customer, and we would look at these various opinions that gets formed by these hundreds of personas, right? And these personas, we would look at those opinions and say, is there anything that could be like a gaffe, some brand crisis situation that would spew? And we were blown away with the performance. Like we were able to predict brand crisis situations that would happen even after, we would say, okay, so there's an issue, there's a brand crisis situation with KFC. They had done a promotional message around the event called Kristallnacht in Germany, which is a kind of very somber memorial. But KFC tweeted out, celebrate Kristallnacht with their chicken, right? Like, so that was kind of seen as a big gaffe, right? At that point, people who are not familiar with that history wouldn't understand, right? Like, so it might be maybe an automated message, or an intern who's not familiar with the history of Germany. And anybody else for that matter, who's not really that into the history, right, could make that mistake, right? So, but our personas, we were able to see that there was this potential of crisis going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was a red, amber, green kind of solution, where you'd say, okay, if there is amber or red, stop, don't send it out. Look at if there is something potentially problematic there. So that had a very nice application to it. But the problem is, especially because at that time ChatGPT had not happened, and we're talking to all these investors, and people are saying, "What is this technology? Like, I can't, I can't, I don't know whether there's like any legs to this. Looks like magic, right?" Um, yeah. So at that point, we found it a little bit hard to kind of get traction with with the industry, especially because people didn't want to invest in something because of something you would predict or you would prevent, right? So they only see value until a crisis hits, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that was the phase one journey for us, which kind of was more useful for us as a hypothesis testing tool to see predictive value for the technology. And we saw a lot of predictive value. We were able to predict more than 90% of the cases where the gaps had occurred, or like the crisis situation was occurred. And that helped us to kind of even ourselves believe that there is this potential for this technology, right? That helped us. And also early customer feedback, like our early adopters feedback from our early adopters, helped us to set up phase two, where we are right now. Phase two, what we did was that, okay, what we saw from our early adopters was that they started using, not just to test whether there is brand crisis, they wanted to see the exact responses of how these personas are reacting. And they said, "Oh, that's a little nice feedback about my promotional message. I might want to tweak it, right? Like, because this persona was saying this specific thing, this other persona was saying another specific thing, and they got very excited about, like, I want to use this to kind of improve my promotional message because I'm getting all this feedback, right?" And so that's when we kind of changed, went from phase one to phase two, where we introduced this concept of AI communities. No, now it's not like a disparate set of personas, it's a specific AI community, right? And we define an AI community as a set of personas that has that has a target characteristic, right? So if you want to say, so if you're Nike and you want to get into Egypt, and you want to target 18 to 25-year-old females who are interested in running, right, in Egypt, we can create that community for you, right? And that community would consist of personas or agents that look like actual people, and they would have this characteristic. Now, the most important aspect is that they're not just having this characteristics, but they have many other characteristics. We have over 50 plus dimensions for each persona. That is diverse, right? And that's what lends to the power of our system, is that the diversity of all the other variables that these individuals have. Because as humans, we are multidimensional, right? Our aspects right now, as an individual who is like is waking up and doing all these things, some of them might actually be useful for a customer to understand, to kind of create their product or customize their product, so on and so forth. So that diversity as humans, and these multi-dimensional aspects of humans, helps us to kind of give a very rich understanding about a customer's pain point or a customer's problem that they want to run by this run by this community, right? So we introduced this concept of AI communities in phase two. That helps us to kind of helps customers to come and then talk to their target audience, right? So at this point, what we did was that once you have your AI community in front of you, now you have all the traditional methodologies of market research, marketing, to kind of run with this community. So it's just like an online WhatsApp group or a Facebook group that you have in front of you. Now you can talk to them like it's a group chat, or you can run surveys. Group chat, like focus group discussion. You can run surveys. You can run many other features that we have enabled to interact with this community, right? So that's where we are right now, and this is what we've been interacting with all our customers. Our customers are kind of and there's this whole people call it synthetic research at the moment. I don't really like the word synthetic, because I feel like really I like to think about them as people, right? Like we are in the business of creating modeling people as closely as we can to their persona definition. And we can go into a little bit technical there if we want about how we do that internally as well. So we call them AI agents because we have a specific reasoning for them to call them as agents. So we were one of the companies that kind of had agents very early on, and because we didn't want to we didn't not just want to use data in order to model these personas. We wanted to model behavior, right? Companies like Character AI and things like that early on, what they did was they took famous individuals like Elon Musk or like Jeff Bezos, and they created their avatar using the data that they had generated, right? We could also kind of try to mine individual data and mimic humans, but we don't but that would kind of go against an ethical principle of kind of mimicking actual humans. We didn't want to mimic actual people, right? We want to create an entirely new person who has an entirely new set of characteristics, like with high dimensional characteristics, but we want to give them a behavior that is representative of that particular person, right? If you consider them as a person of this particular cohort, how would they behave? And for behavior, you need to model their actions, right? How would they act in a given situation? So that's why we call them as AI agents, because they have the ability to take action. They have agency for them, right? And the word action, word agent comes from agency, right? Because they have agency, and they can. So, for example, one of the things that we have enabled, one of the examples that I give is that we might have a community with hundreds of personas with them, but when you're running a focus group discussions, we don't ask our agents to kind of respond to this question like you would ask a chat gpt a question and it would respond. That's not how our community works, right? We post a question to this community, and the agents themselves decide, do I want to respond? Like, am I interested in this specific topic, right? They decide whether to come in and participate in a discussion or not. So that's one example of how they take actions, and how their actions then inform their behavior, right? And so that behavioral modeling is one of the key aspects that we have that kind of early on set us apart from many of these persona modeling startups in Gen AI.
That's awesome. I love this concept. I love the technology. The idea that you're basically giving companies the ability to test their marketing, test their products against a focus group, but it's not real people, and it's amazing that you can get the results that you can. But I totally believe it because I'll tell you a little story. So I went to all this technology you're building is actually quite similar to some of the technology that, believe it or not, Netflix uses to build, to create programming today. And I thought this was such an incredible thing when I went to a talk from Reed Hastings, one of the founders of Netflix, and he talked about how Netflix has evolved to use AI to determine when they want to develop a program, a series, or a movie. They can actually predict whether it will be successful or not. And so a lot of people come to them and say, hey, I want to create this film, and here's the whatever the script and all that stuff. Well, they can actually put their script into their AI and determine, based on all of the personas that they have, which is their customers and what they've tracked about their customers, they can actually determine whether it'll be successful or not. And so they don't have to make sort of this judgment decision and say, well, we like it, and then maybe send it to a few people and say, do you like it? They actually can have their own AI, just like you have, that enables them to determine this show is going to be successful. And then they buy it because they know it's going to be successful already. And to your point, you're democratizing that technology.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
what I love about this is, we're always talking about democratizing data, democratizing AI so that others can have the ability to do things that, quite frankly, in the past, only these massive companies have been able to do,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
to me, that's what you're doing. And I love that.
Yeah, exactly. So the democratization of market research is one of our key goals as well with phase two.
Mm-hmm.
With the like you said, we were surprised by the amount of money that was spent on market research and how costly it is. Like small and medium business does not have a chance, right? Because they're not able to kind of interact. They spend all this money for like big consulting firms who then go out and collect all these, gather all these data about people and things like that, and try to run focus groups and so on and so forth, right? So with our tools, it is very easy to create. To if you have, so we provide like 3 to 4 different tiers of data ingestion, right? So data is one of the key aspects here as well. But what we have seen is that not everybody needs data, because the data that a small or medium business would need to understand their customer would already be there in the pre-training data of these large language models, right? And we would like only require very minimal fine tuning in terms of enabling the behavior of our personas, right? So we have seen in majority of the cases, you don't even need to provide this additional data in order to understand a specific segment of the target audience. Yeah. But the next level would be to kind of actually, okay, look, okay, I have this specific niche thing. I need to get some data. And then what we do is that we learn the behavior. We don't go ahead and like get that exact sliver of data that, or the domain that people are looking at. We go and kind of collect all the data, because people are multidimensional, right? Like, we need to collect all of the aspects, like their behavior in various different contexts, in order to kind of inform their behavior, right? So we cast a wide net. We look at the common crawl data set and try to extract as many surrounding information as possible in order to feed in, right? So we go from, say, for example, like no data to ingesting some data to ingesting like walled off data from customers, like previous survey results, which kind of improve the performance of our personas based on the niche that they are in. A very interesting story that we had very early on, a success story that we had very early on, was to model a group of people that has so that is that has there is a potential for contracting HIV. They're high risk at contracting HIV, right? And it's a very hard group of people to communicate to, right? And so they only get very less number of people to take part in interviews, and they understand only a handful of people, right? And so what we did was that but the interesting aspect to this is that these individuals have a very strong online presence, right? So they talk about, but anonymous, right? So they have a very strong online presence, and so they anonymously discuss their problems and things like that. So there's like good content online, but it is very hard to parse that content, because you can't reach out to these individuals, right? Like obviously they want to remain anonymous. But the interesting aspect here is that we don't have to infringe on anybody's specific privacy, because we can learn a behavior layer on top of that, and then just from a very big picture perspective, understand that behavioral layer, and then apply it to a new person, right? Like an AI persona. And so that kind of allows us to be ethical at the same time, to not infringe on an individual's privacy, but it becomes completely new, because the responses that an AI generate is based on their behavior, their definition of who they are, right? Like the AI persona, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have to infringe on somebody's privacy, but at the same time, customers can create products that align to somebody's preferences, right? A group's preferences. And so we did some early testing, and they kind of matched the opinions and preferences of the testing that they had already done in the ground, right? Which helped them to. So this was about like how they want to kind of get more awareness about pre-exposure prophylactics in the HIV community, which helped them to kind of reach out to that niche audience, right? So that's one of our biggest applications, is to talk to niche audience, which would be very hard to get to.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I want, I don't want to run out of time before we get through some more topics. So I wanted to ask you to touch a little bit on our next topic of driving innovation and marketing success with AI insights.
Yeah. So I mean, the same thing applies, right? Like, so this is the funny thing about our platform, is that the reason our platform, we've built it very generally, right? It's not we can use it for marketing and insight generation, like we can run focus groups, AI surveys, we can do like an image ranking, we can get attention heat maps, like saliency maps. So for example, like if you have a website, you can basically provide your new landing page that you're doing, and you can do an A/B testing on our platform and look at where are these personas, their attention is getting captured. All of these tools kind of enable marketing and market research folks to understand the preferences and opinions about about their specific target audience, right? So but at the same time, this platform is very general. Like you can get insights about virtually any sphere. Like for example, like product development, right? You have a new concept that you want to talk about. That you can take that concept, you can put it to this community, and you can brainstorm, right? Like it also acts as a brainstorming tool, right? It's very general. The way it is designed right now, it is very general, in the sense that it is not the tool that we built on top of this, which is our focus group, survey, image ranking, and heat map tool. At the moment, these are the features that we offer as a service. They are basically just an application of the underlying engine, right? Like we call the underlying engine an audience behavioral simulation engine. So it's essentially simulating the behavior of a specific given audience. So that is not just restricted to these specific tools, right? So we can, anywhere there is an application for understanding audience behavior, the base layer can be leveraged. And so one of the new tools that we're building, and which we're launching very soon, is a tool to understand how we can grow our social media handles, right? Because for every social media handle, like even if it is an individual influencer or is in a company, right, they want to increase the reach of their social media handle with the target audience that they want, right? They might not be actually attracting the target audience that they want, right? Like that, because of the nature of the content that they are posting, they might be attracting is some other target audience, right? Like some other kind of audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is that we look at the audience that they are attracting. We look at the target audience that they want, and then we do an alignment analysis, right? How can we align the posts, the images, everything that they're posting, in order to align with this their target audience, so that they can kind of reach who they want to reach. So we provide a detailed social listening and also social forecasting, right? Like how should you change your content? Like how should we provide optimization techniques in order to kind of tweak images, and analysis on video as well, in order to kind of help them with the
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. My laptop also kind of got logged. I don't know why. So
I think
that's
Jesse and I are both potential customers there.
Oh, nice. So we are kind of just launching it in the next couple of weeks. That will be one of our other suits. So with this, what we are exploring right now is that, okay, where can we apply this base layer of audience behavior simulation engine, right? Which all different spheres of the marketing and the workflow in an industry where you want to reach out to this target audience. are we can we apply? There's a funny story that I say that it's not just marketing where we can apply. We can also even apply to the gaming industry, where NPCs are like known to be, there's this colloquial terminology of being an NPC, right, where it's not really thinking and where it's not interacting within this community, right? So we can provide services to kind of make the NPCs more rich in with our personas, because we have at this moment we have more than close to 1 million personas within our database, right? So these are all diverse individuals that can be spun up at any point of time in order to understand any specific, create any specific community, right?
That's amazing, to be able to do sort of market research on 1 million people. In a normal situation, you're talking about, how difficult would that be if there was real people? You could never really achieve that. So this is pretty incredible. I love it.
Yeah. The one thing that I wanted to talk about kind of was our next phase of operations, which is phase 3, which is kind of like the part 3 of the master plan we had when we started out. And here we want to push this to the next level, right? We want to push the concept of AI community to the next level. And what we are building, and that we've already built a proof of concept, and we kind of making it into a product at the moment, and will be soon released in the next couple of months, hopefully, if everything goes well, is the concept of connected communities, right? So we're building communities now, so communities of individuals, and now we're connecting different communities together, because like a person who is female in Egypt, who's an athletic, who's 18 to 25-year-old, is also part of another community. Like, if you create a community of women in Egypt, it's part of another community, right? So based on just membership of communities and likes and dislikes of information, you have now people who are part of different communities, and they're connected with membership and likes and following, right? So essentially what we are building here is a social network of AI personas, right? And social network is essentially just connected communities. And what this allows us to do, and we're like being blown away by the internal results what we're getting, is that we are able to get network effect, right? So imagine you're Nike, right? You have all these different connected communities within our platform, say a core Nike fan base, right? And then you have a community of basketball enthusiasts, community of running, community of gym goers, and so on and so forth. Different community, diverse communities, right? We can put a bucket on top of any set of people that has something in common and call them a community, right? Like a clique, right? And if Nike introduces a new post or new idea, like a sneaker idea, into their fan base community, now you can see how that post propagates within our social network, right? Within these personas, because all these personas can take actions. They can like, they can share, they can talk to each other, they can follow somebody. This network graph is going to kind of enable these this specific enable Nike to understand how is this specific information propagating within this graph, right? Which community are they reaching? Like who? And that has shown a very significant. We have seen very significant correlation with real world data within our internal testing. So we're very super excited to kind of get it out to people's hand within the next couple of months, test it with our early adopters. Because all our investors are very excited about this, and so that's something that I think is going to be like a super super fascinating period of Socialtrait, to see how this would fare in the industry.
Yeah, selfishly, I mean, I have a community of about 150 women in sales and marketing who are active on LinkedIn, and we're all in a WhatsApp group. So selfishly, I'm like, would I have to move them all to that, or can we just like make all of this happen in WhatsApp? But I know that's another conversation, because I really want to hear your thoughts on ethical considerations in AI. I mean, we're almost running out of time, but with all of this, I mean, you have communities, you have your AI agents. is there any interaction where people may think they're interacting with humans that they're not, or like what other ethical considerations maybe I'm not even considering with all this?
Yeah, I mean, there's huge. When we were like early on in our time, we had like a lot of opportunities to go into political campaigns, right? And we steered clear of it, clear from that because we didn't because of the power of the system and the ability to manipulate discourse, right?
Mhm.
And to kind of so that is a field we have to be very careful about. We have to understand what we are doing, so the ethical implications of being able to kind of manipulate individuals by understanding their behavior for political gains, all of those things we've steered clear from. That is one of the things that we have decided not to do as a company, to kind of um, give services to political organizations for campaign related activities. So we wanted to make sure that we are doing it for the right reasons, in order to and the flip side of it is that we are able to understand human behavior without actually infringing on human privacy, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the cookieless world that is going to come, it is going to be more and more important that you steer clear about infringing somebody's privacy. Okay, understand their behavior, their needs, right? But don't try to infringe on their privacy. So that this helps that narrative and that need for kind of going above, like taking the high road in terms of being not kind of snooping around people's private data, right? Another important thing that we have considered is the so fairness and bias aspects within what we are doing. So many of the times we by default we create when we create communities, and this is something that we didn't talk about, is that one of the biggest powers of our community is that we can create communities which has specific distributions, right? So if your community need to have, like 70% female, 30% male, 30% male, we can do that, but we can do it across multiple dimensions, right? And actually we had to create a novel algorithm that does this across multiple dimensions, because it's a very hard problem technically, in order to match distributions across different dimensions, right? And to get them to and to have them in a community. So we had to solve the technical problem first. There's a patent pending algorithm that we have developed in order to match the distributions, right? And this distribution matching actually kind of improves the insights that we generate. So because of this distribution matching, we are now able to say, okay, if you are kind of exploring like a social issue, we can oversample underrepresented groups in order to make their voice heard more, right? And there are certain customers who want to match with real world distributions, right? So whatever distributions that a customer wants to match to, we can match to, right? If their intent is to kind of overcome this and the data bias that we have in terms of data gathering, we can do that because we can create distributions that is fair for within our community, right? So that's kind of one of the main things that we had kept in our mind in terms of creating communities, right?
Mhm.
This distribution is the this is actually a very key aspect of how we create our AI communities, this distribution matching, because that means that we can look at any kind of slice of this slice of a community, right? That we want to talk about. The one, when people ask me about, like, bias mitigation and things like that, what I always say is that we actually create bias because every individual is different. You want to create biases, or only then you are going to look at a slice of a specific
Like
community,
real
right?
opinions from like real AI
Yeah.
agents. Yeah.
Correct. So we are all creating a bias, but we are creating a bias that matches a particular distribution, right? So we are in
Yeah.
the business of creating bias, but we are guiding that bias to kind of look at a specific slice of an audience that a particular customer is interested in, right?
Oh man, if
Um,
we had more time, I would be like, well, how do you balance all of that bias? But yeah, well, I guess we just won't go there because we need to ask you about your
Definitely.
tech stack. I mean, it sounds like you're doing some really interesting things over at Socialtrait. So, what are some of your favorite tools that are empowering you and your team?
This is one of the most challenging things as a startup that started in the early phase of Gen AI. We had to build everything from scratch, right? Like, now you guys, like, at this point, there's all these small companies that is focusing on specific pain points in execution of this Gen AI stack, right? We had to build our own load balancer. We had to build our own observability tools. We had to build almost all of the infrastructure that we have from scratch, right? Like, we had to build an model orchestrator. We had to build a model router. All of these things we built from scratch, because when we started off, none of these tools existed, right? So we had to, in order to scale and match enterprise demand, we had to build all of these stacks, all of these technologies at from scratch. Like, we have a very robust load balancer system that, we are thinking of whether we have to open source or not, because, I mean, these are not our skill sets, right? Like, we would really want to move away from that and focus on what we are good at, rather than building out our technology stack. So we are actually in a phase where we are going to try and move away from in-house technology stack, and kind of trying to leverage established tools. For example, we're moving to light LLM for our load balancing and routing of all our infrastructure. We're using um, like ST-Lang, VLLM for our internal model serving. We use a lot of AI tools. So, for example, we've been mandating we've been mandating that our engineers and all of our employees use AI tools like Cursor, Windsurf, and, to increase their productivity internally. um, but yeah, so the funny thing is that most of the technology stack has been built in house, right? Because of the fact that we were very early on into this in this Gen AI stack.
Yeah, that's not always a bad thing, but yeah, sometimes it's good to go get some established tools. So good for you on doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's actually been a struggle, because we have to divert our small team's focus from actually building the technology that we want to build into building, like, supporting infrastructure. So I've been, like, in our next round of funding, which is going to be very soon. The we've been trying We'll be kind of looking at having established teams in order to kind of migrate our current stack into new products. So, for example, we just recently migrated to Langfuse, right, which is now our observability tool, that helps us kind of keep track of all the billions of tokens that is flying around in our system, right? Where all the money is going as well.
Definitely. Well,
Awesome.
great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Suraj. And as we're wrapping up, would you like to let listeners know how they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter or X, at SurajX32. I kind of, I mean, I don't tweet, but I kind of repost many of these new technical content that is there. So that's where I'm more active at. You can find me in LinkedIn as well. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. But I'm a very avid Twitter or X user, and mostly because the following, if you kind of closely curate your content on Twitter, you get really good results. But don't go for the For You tab, just use the following tab. That's the best. If you follow the right people, you get really good content over there. So you can find me there, and you can shoot me a DM on X as well. Yeah.
Interesting. I'd love to
Right?
hear from people in the comments. Anyone else over on X? Because that's the first I've heard in a while of someone who's still engaging and liking X. So I need to maybe check it back out. But
Yeah.
audience
Yeah.
members, we want to invite you to get powered by BeatX and build authentic connections with your audience. We want to help you drive unprecedented growth. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences, sort of like we were talking today about AI. But, as a marketer, finding product market fit can sometimes be the hardest part. So now just imagine taking your best customers and AI to find more of your best customers, ensuring your marketing hits the mark every time. So we want to help bring you closer to your marketing goals, and we're eager to guide you. You can use the QR code in the bottom of the screen, or just go to bedex.com and click on Talk to an Expert and get powered by Bedex. And also, you can reach out to us at info@bedex.com if you have any qualitative data to share with us about the show, because we're always trying to make it better. We have pretty much filled up the year. I think we have one more slot left for 2024. But Tuesdays are open and available, but they are for paid opportunities. So it's a really great opportunity to showcase your brand. We'll do things a little bit differently on Tuesdays, but if you're interested in that, just email us at info@bedex.com. Otherwise, thank you so much again, Suraj, for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Suraj.
Thank you for having me.
This has been amazing. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us on the show.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jesse.
Bye.
Right.